April 2023. Gunfire echoes through the streets of Khartoum. Fighter jets scream across the sky. Homes are reduced to rubble. Hospitals are abandoned, and millions of civilians are trapped in the middle of a power struggle between two generals. But Sudan's war did not begin in 2023. It did not begin in 2019, and it did not begin in Darfur. To understand Sudan's civil war, we must go back decades to colonial borders, broken peace agreements, ethnic divisions, military coups, and unfinished revolutions. This is the story of how one of Africa's largest nations became the stage for one of the world's most devastating and most overlooked wars.
Sudan's instability begins long before independence. From 1899 to 1956, Sudan was ruled as Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, jointly administered by Britain and Egypt, but in reality, Britain controlled policy. Colonial authorities ruled Sudan as two separate regions, the north, largely Arab and Muslim, the south, largely African and Christian or animist. Rather than unify the country, colonial policy deepened divisions. The north was developed politically and economically. The south was isolated, underdeveloped, and cut off from national governance. When Sudan gained independence in 1956, it inherited a fractured state, not a unified nation. And that fracture would soon explode. Even before independence was officially declared, Southern soldiers mutinied in 1955. They feared domination by the Arab-led North. This marked the beginning of Sudan's first civil war, a 17-year conflict between the central government and southern rebel groups. Over 500,000 people died. The war ended in 1972 with the Addis Ababa Agreement, granting limited autonomy to the south, but peace was fragile. In 1983, President Jafar Nimeri revoked Southern autonomy and imposed Islamic Sharia law nationwide. The South rebelled again, this time under the Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA. The Second Civil War lasted 22 years. It killed an estimated 2 million people. It displaced 4 million more. It was one of the deadliest wars in modern African history. The war finally ended in 2005 with the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, and in 2011, South Sudan voted for independence. Sudan was split into two countries, but peace did not follow because conflict had simply shifted. While the North and South were fighting, another war erupted in Western Sudan. In 2003, rebel groups in Darfur accused the government of marginalizing non-Arab communities. The government responded brutally. It armed and supported Arab militias known as the Janjaweed. Villages were burned. Mass killings occurred. Women were subjected to systematic sexual violence. An estimated 300,000 people were killed. Over 2.5 million were displaced. The International Criminal Court later issued an arrest warrant for Sudan's president, Omar al-Bashir, accusing him of genocide, but he remained in power. For decades, Sudan was ruled by military strongman Omar al-Bashir, until the people rose up. In 2018, bread prices tripled. Economic collapse triggered nationwide protests. What began as demonstrations over inflation became a revolution. By April 2019, after months of mass protests, the military removed Omar al-Bashir from power. For the first time in decades, Sudanese citizens felt hope. A transitional government was formed. It was meant to guide Sudan toward democracy. Power would be shared between civilians and the military. But beneath the surface, tensions were building because two powerful men were rising. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan became head of Sudan's Sovereignty Council. He led the Sudanese armed forces, the official national army. He presented himself as a stabilizing figure, but he was deeply rooted in Sudan's military establishment. His rival was Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hemedti. He commanded the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The RSF evolved from the Janjaweed militias of Darfur. Unlike the National Army, the RSF was a powerful paramilitary force loyal to Hemedti personally. 2 generals, 2 armies, 1 fragile country. At first they cooperated. In 2021, they staged a joint coup, removing civilian leaders from the transitional government. But soon, alliance turned into rivalry. On April 15, 2023, fighting erupted between the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF. Khartoum, the capital, became a battlefield. This was no longer a protest, it was open war. Jets bombed neighborhoods, artillery struck residential areas. Civilians were trapped without electricity, water, or medical care. The conflict quickly spread beyond Khartoum into Darfur, Kordofan, and other regions. Within months, millions were displaced, thousands were killed. Sudan faced famine. Hospitals collapsed. Foreign embassies evacuated. Sudan became one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. At the center of the war is one key issue: control. Control of the military, control of resources, control of the state. One major dispute involved integrating the RSF into the national army. al-Burhan wanted integration within 2 years. Hemedti wanted a 10-year timeline. But beneath that technical disagreement lay deeper fears. If integrated quickly, Hemedti would lose autonomy. If integration stalled, the army feared the RSF would become stronger. This was not ideological. It was a power struggle. And Sudan's civilians are paying the price.
The consequences have been catastrophic. Millions have fled to neighboring countries: Chad, Egypt, South Sudan, Ethiopia. Entire cities have been emptied. Reports of ethnic violence in Darfur have resurfaced. The United Nations has warned of potential genocide. Aid agencies struggle to access conflict zones. And yet, global attention remains limited, overshadowed by other wars, forgotten in headlines. But for Sudanese families, this is survival.
Sudan is strategically located. It borders 7 countries. It sits near the Red Sea, a critical global trade route. Its land contains gold and natural resources. Foreign powers have interests. Regional actors are accused of backing different sides. But diplomacy has repeatedly failed to secure a lasting ceasefire. Peace talks have collapsed. Temporary truces have broken, and trust between the generals has evaporated. Sudan stands at a crossroads. Possible futures include prolonged civil war, de facto partition, military dominance by one side, a renewed civilian uprising. The greatest tragedy is this. In 2019, Sudanese citizens proved they wanted democracy. They organized peacefully. They demanded accountability. They risked their lives for change. And now they are once again trapped between armed factions. Sudan's war is not just a clash between 2 generals. It is the result of colonial divisions, failed governance, ethnic marginalization, militarized politics, unfinished revolutions. It is a story of a country repeatedly denied stability. But it is also a story of resilience, because despite decades of war, Sudan's civil society remains strong, its youth remain determined, its diaspora remains engaged. History shows that authoritarian rule can fall and that people's movements can reshape nations. The question is not whether Sudanese people desire peace. They do. The question is whether power will finally shift from guns to governance. Until then, Sudan remains a nation fighting for its future. If this breakdown helped you understand the Sudanese Civil War more clearly, consider liking the video and subscribing for more in-depth geopolitical analysis. Comment below, what do you think is the most realistic path to peace in Sudan? And in our next episode, we will examine the role of foreign powers in the conflict and how regional rivalries are shaping Sudan's fate. Thank you for watching.